All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. My name is Tawfikur Khan. People call me TK. I'm the chair of the Department of Mathematics and Statistics here at UNC Charlotte. I'm going to welcome to the QEP course showcase. This particular session will be featuring our StatWays, which is a redesign project that has been happening for a few years now. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Evan Wantland. Evan is the QEP director, and he's going to go ahead and drive the presentation and explain, what this redesign is, what's about this redesign project. So, Evan, do you want to take it on?
Sure, thanks, TK.
Thank you.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Evan Wantland. I'm the Director of Math Pathways here at UNC Charlotte. And this StatWays, though it predates our QEP, our Quality Enhancement Plan, and our StatWays, our NINERways project, this was a lot of the impetus for it. And so I want to give a quick snapshot of how it fits now into the larger picture of the changes that we're making. This all sort of started off with a lot of research done by the Dana Center out of UT Austin, which identified some national challenges we're seeing in our Gateway Math courses. And once again, this is not simply a UNC Charlotte thing. These are national issues, but being made aware of these national issues, the people at UNC Charlotte asked, how can we affect these for our students on our campus? So what can we do to make our courses have relevance? What we do about our success rates, and what we can do about the equity in these courses, specifically for our students. And what that eventually turned into was our quality enhancement plan as part of our SAC-COC reaffirmation process for accreditation. This, of course, you're probably aware, last March, they were here for an on-campus visit, and we did quite well, and we presented our plan for our 10-year quality enhancement plan to them. They were very receptive, had some good ideas. And the basis of this plan is just like those issues that the Dana Center pointed out. How can we look at those for our campus? So we really want to consider our new gen ed, our students going through our math gen ed. So we see the bulk of our students, and we want to redesign these gateway math classes to address those challenges. And this is where we came up with our NINERways, which is our quality enhancement plan. And we came up with these three pillars. And what you're going to notice about these three pillars is these three pillars are going to come up in the discussion of the redesign of our StatWays. And that's sort of because it's a chicken and an egg thing. Sort of the StatWays project happened, and we used that as a model to look at more courses in our gen ed math things, and we use this to move forward. So these pillars are, of course, the first thing: make these courses relevant to students, make them understand what their math pathway is from when they're entering to getting into their major courses. Another big thing is we really are focusing on uniformity in our sections, course curriculum coordination, communities of instructors, teams of instructors. That's what we're really looking for. And then finally, this has all got to be data-driven and evidence-based. So we have a lot of experience, a lot of professional development has been done by our faculty, and they understand these methods, and that's what we're doing. And this is the core fundamental concepts of our quality enhancement plan. Now, the whole driving force behind this is really student success. So we really want to make changes in what we're seeing currently for our students. Once again, this is for our students here at UNC Charlotte. What can we do to increase our success rates? We want to decrease our DFW rates, and we have target numbers. Decrease this by 30%, but we also want to reduce our variation among sections. We want to see independence of sections when it comes to our grades. And back to the DFW rates, we're already asking another question: is what really is a C? Right? So what does it mean to get a C in our courses and to advance? And what is the success rate of students advancing with Cs? The other big deal is these equity gaps. And we see equity gaps in our gateway math classes in minoritized groups, Pell eligible students. We see gaps between first-time in college students and transfer students, and these are gaps we would like to address. So we want to not only reduce our overall rates, but we'd also like to see no significance in these gaps in certain populations. And then ultimately, this should affect our graduation rates. As mentioned in the Dana Center, gateway math courses can be a real obstacle, a real barrier in a student's efficiency toward graduation. And now that this is part of our state funding model, efficiency toward graduation, it's something we're very mindful of. So ultimately, we want to get these students into their major courses as quickly as they can and progressing through them so they can graduate in a timely manner. Now, this all came down, we described these three major pathways that we would look at. Today, of course, we're looking at our StatWays path right there in the middle, but there are two other paths associated with the larger NINERways project. We have our extremely huge algebra to calculus pathway, which includes everything from college algebra up through our sort of first calculus courses, either the 1120 business or the 1241 towards STEM. And we also have our QuantWays, which is our pathway for students who are in majors that maybe don't require specific math or statistics courses. And then our other path here is our StatWays path, and this is predominantly for students in our social sciences and health sciences. And what we've done with these pathways is we've provided an entry point to every one of our pathways without prerequisites. So any student at UNC Charlotte can enter our algebra to calculus pathway at college algebra. Any student can enter our StatWay at Stat 1222, which we're about to hear about, and any student can enter our QuantWay at Math 1102, whichever path is right for them. So that's another part of our pathways design. Right, so here are our pathways. We're going to talk about StatWays. In a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about QuantWays. So you could come back to another showcase and hear what we're doing there. Now, here to talk about this today are a couple of our faculty. We have Juan and Ree with us. Here's our faculty team that really built this. Now, it's been a larger faculty team coming and going, but here's the people that are here today, a couple people. And I'm going to just hand it over to Juan right now and let her get started talking to you about this specific StatWays project.
All right, hi everyone. So as Evan said, today we are talking about our statistics for social science students. We began our redesign in 2019 by meeting with our faculty partners in the social sciences department to discuss what they expect from students who have taken Stat 1222 as a prerequisite, and whether the students coming into their classroom had those necessary skills. All right, next slide. So there are three things that came out of those meetings. First, we came to an agreement about the content alignments, so about the topics that students should learn in the course. So as a result, some of the materials were removed from the curriculum to free up some time in class to explore those essential topics. Second, we decided to focus more on the conceptual understanding so that we both us and the social science faculty we do agree that that was an important focus in order for students to understand how statistics is relevant in their daily lives. So just doing calculation isn't enough to grasp those conceptual understanding of what those numerical results mean in the context of the problems students are working on. Third, we decided to perform statistical analysis through Excel, which is used in other courses as well, and is also a useful tool beyond this course, which can also be applied when students enter their workforce. So instead of using the traditional handheld calculator, students uses Microsoft Excel. And also this saves students some of their college expenses. Instead of having to purchase $100 worth more, over $100 worth of calculators, students simply install Microsoft Excel from the UNCC software website, and they're good to go with the calculations. Right, and the main drive, the main incentive to keep the QEP going is the course redesign, which is through the topic reorganization, from the research-based practices, through the adaptive courseware, and using Excel to do the calculations. And with the course coordination, it helps to minimize those variability in the among sections. And having active learning classroom is definitely help us to engage students in the classroom through group works and active participations. All right, I'm gonna pass it on to Ree for the next slide.
Yeah, so StatWays is actually a 2-course sequence with absolutely no prerequisite requirements. So this is accessible to any student at UNC Charlotte. They can start their math pathway right away. They can get into their major courses quicker because they don't have to take college algebra before coming into Stats 1222. That's a real benefit of what we're doing here. Required algebra skills and computer-based calculation skills are taught as needed alongside the material. And you can see the material that's covered in these 2 courses. Note that Stat 1222 covers fewer topics than its counterparts, Stats 1220.
We'll see if Ree gets back here. Oh,
No worries, we can edit those things out.
sure. So, okay, what she was about to say is that we have 2 other statistics courses at the 1000 level. We also have a Stat 1220 and a Stat 1221, and those courses still have a lot more topics packed into them, and those also have college algebra as a prerequisite, so there's less of that going on. I think I'm going to turn it, see, I think Ree's gone, and maybe she's going to try to pop back in. Juan, do you want to take this over and talk about the separation of the topics here and how this came about?
Sure. So through the meeting that we had in 2019, so we decided to cut down the materials that needs to be covered in Stat 1222. So we decided to focus mainly on 1 variable calculations in Stat 1222, and all the 2 sample calculations we created as the second sequence of the course, which is namely Stat 1322. So in 1322, as you can see, it's mainly focusing on 2 samples calculations on confidence interval and hypothesis testing and linear regressions. So right now we are trying to increase the enrollment in Stat 1322 because it's not widely, students are not aware of that course, and we're hoping that other departments and advisors can also let students be aware of that, of the second sequence of this StatWay course. So Stat 1222, it was launched in spring 2020. And as of now, we have enrolled over 5,700 students by now. We do have preceptors assigned to every sections. And that's usually undergraduates or students who have taken Stat 1222 in the past, who have earned an excellent grade, and we have expanded our team to 7 instructional leaders. Originally, there was only 3 of us, and then now we have 7 instructors who are teaching this course and still counting, and it's fully coordinated. We shared all of our course materials, in-class activities, and question banks so that we can keep our sections consistent and standard across all board. And this course is also supported by the CTL instructional designers, so they help us in designing the Canvas page and making sure that the adaptive software is working properly and synced properly with our Canvas. And in Stat 1322, it was launched in spring 2023. So it was pretty new, also supported by the CTL. So since it's pretty new, as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to increase enrollment in students. We're trying to make students aware that there's a second sequence of Stat course that they can take that can fulfill their degree requirements. So hopefully in the near future, we can get more students coming in into that next Stat. So the way the class is being done, being operated, usually in the past, we would just go through the traditional way where the professor would just do all the talking. All students do is just sit there and take notes. So we trying to change that around. So now we're using the active and adaptive blend. So before students come to class, we expect students to be prepared with something that are low stakes, something that is pretty basic that they can actually learn by themselves. They don't need someone to teach them to do it. So usually they are before class assignments where they would have to watch short videos that goes over basic definitions, basic examples. And then through those videos, students will complete some of the practice problems in the adaptive software called Realize It. And that's where we assess students' initial understanding to see if they understood those basic foundation materials of the lesson. And then when they come in the class, where that's the deepening phase of the learning, where that's when students are going through some engaged activity in the classroom, active learning activities. We use Poll Everywheres to let students practice more on that materials that they had learned. And also we give us more detailed instructions on what they need to be doing in class with more Excel work, where they get to work with data set, real life data set, and doing some numerical and graphical analysis. And students also get to do some group work. And through there, we assess students through Poll Everywhere, and they submit their work on Canvas as well. And in class, we also have preceptors. So preceptors they always attend every class meetings to assist the instructors in terms of the managing the group work. And then after class, if students need more time completing those in-class activities or in-class work, they get to complete it after class, and they also can get further help. If they need assistance, they can use our tutoring hours. And the preceptors also have shared office hours. So any preceptor, students can go to office hours from any preceptors, not just the preceptor that was assigned to that particular sections. So that gives students more extended hours that they can always find help.
And it looks like Ree has been able to rejoin us. And so
Okay.
I think we're gonna
All right, so all right.
Thanks
it
for
back
covering
over.
for me. Thanks for covering for me, Juan. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So Juan mentioned that we use videos with the students before class. One of the outcomes of the meetings with our social science partners were the ones who were involved made a series of videos for our students, which is pretty amazing, where they share how they use statistics in their research and in their career. And this is a way that we really want to help students see how this course relates to them, their majors, their lives, and their interests. Now, as you can see on the left, these videos are housed in Canvas. If you go to the next slide. Canvas works hand in hand with our adaptive learning software, Realize It. So this is what that software looks like from the student point of view. A typical topic on the left there, it's got several smaller lessons. Some of them are dependent on other lessons, some of them stand alone. So students can kind of choose how they're going to progress through the material, which is really nice. On the right, you're seeing what the material looks like. So there is written text and pictures that match in terms of vocabulary and notation with what they're seeing in the videos. So it ties in really nicely. Also housed inside that Realize It are some practice questions that they can work through, and then they're graded questions. So go ahead to the next slide. This is what the graded questions look like from the student's point of view. They're typically numerical free response. So students are having to kind of type in numbers. It's not a multiple choice situation, but they're getting immediate feedback. So if you see those little green check marks in the top left there, they're finding out right away if they're understanding what they're doing or if they still need to go back and go over the material a little bit more. So that immediate feedback is really, really nice. Next slide. Also, one thing we really love, so we said we're teaching these students using Excel. That would be a real pain if we were having to grade, 90, 180, however many Excel spreadsheets. With our adaptive learning software program, students download the file. It's got a randomized data list. They'll do their calculations in that Excel spreadsheet. upload it back to Realize It, and Realize It will grade it immediately. So again, they get that immediate feedback, and we don't have to look at every single Excel sheet that a student submits. So that's a really big plus for us with the way we're doing Stats 1222. Next slide. Another thing that's great about our adaptive learning platform is that we can customize the questions that students get based on their major or their interests. So as you can see here, we've got 3 examples of essentially the same question, but it's customized for health science students. It's about blood pressure. For criminal justice students, it's about the average financial cost of a felony criminal conviction. For psychology and sociology students, the average anxiety level for college students before an exam. So we're able to deliver that using our adaptive learning software. Again, we're trying to help students see the applicability of statistics to their major and their interests. Now, we've said that the instructors for Stats 1222 use active learning techniques in the classroom, and active learning techniques are a lot easier to deliver if you're in an active learning classroom. So we have priority access to several math learning, active learning classrooms. This is my personal favorite. This is Fretwell 124. Each table seats 5 or 6 students, so they're already sitting in groups. Each table has a monitor that the students can project on with their laptop, and it has a whiteboard. So I love when students are able to project their work on that monitor, because my preceptor and I can walk around the classroom and see where students are, if they're doing fine, or if they need help, or if they're stuck, or if they've misunderstood something. We can see it right away, and that makes it really easy to facilitate. Also, great students can see what other students are doing, so that helps them to get a feel for what's going on in the classroom as well. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Juan to talk about other ways we engage student interests.
So to help students to further relate statistics in their daily life, so for our project assignments, students choose one of the global goals that is related to the current world problems that we need to tackle. So we use the global goal for sustainable development website, as shown here. So this gives students freedom to choose which global issues that they want to use to analyze the main topics, the main field of interest that may also be relevant to their personal life. So that can be very personal to them, and they really find it helpful that they get to see how statistics can be applied in some things related to their daily lives. Okay, next slide, please. And here are some of the infographics made by our Stats 1222 and 1322 students, where they summarize the data that was generated by Realize It through that project Excel assignments. And students use Excel to perform all the calculations and all the construction of the graphical summaries and the charts. And then they make meaningful interpretations in the context of the topic that they choose from one of those global goals. And this portion of the project assignments help students to practice on how to communicate their statistical results in an attractive and professional manner, which is crucial for their for one of the skills that they need when they enter the workforce. All right, so I'm gonna pass it back to, I guess that's still my slide. Okay, so these are some of the student feedback on what they feel after they take this course. So as you can see, we receive a lot of positive feedback from students where they feel like for the first time in their life, they feel like math is actually relevant to them. Math makes sense. It's not just some foreign language where they just have to compute formulas. So now they get to see how statistics can actually be applied in their day-to-day life, what those numbers mean. If it's something that is bad or good, they are able to understand that. And now, like if they would read a statistical journal, they have a better understanding of what that is the report is saying. So that is definitely something that we love to hear from students when we receive this feedback. All right, next slide, please.
Okay, so thanks a lot to Ree and Juan for that great discussion of what they've been doing, this great project. And I think it's really important, a couple of points I want to make before we ask you guys some questions or look for some feedback, is that this is completely coordinated. We're doing this right now. We've got 1,000 or so students in Stat 1222 right now, and every one of them is doing this. Every one of them is in the active learning classrooms. Every one of them has access to all of this stuff. And now we're in our cycle loop of our redesign. We would like to see how it's going, to see if we can see what students are looking like after the product, where they're going into their major classes, how that is transitioning, because once again, this is a constant, a cycle of revision. We make the redesign, then we observe and see what are the effects, what do people think about it, and then we go back and we keep doing this, and we're doing this throughout all of our undergraduate Gateway Math courses. So the questions I have out there for you guys, you can see these, is so we're very interested in people who are seeing these students after Stat 1222, after Stat 1322, in courses where they are expecting to see some statistics. And we'd like to know, was this move to the conceptual ideas and move to Excel? How was that panning out? These were things that were requested. And then also from a bigger point of view, we're interested in feedback or ideas of anybody who else would like to participate in this process of trying to make sure that we're aligning our math courses with your expectations in your majors. So with that, I do want to make sure I open it up. And if anybody's got any questions, they can pop them into the chat, I believe. Or any comments, we'd love to hear from you. Anything out there? I'm trying to look at my... I know that some people in the room were there for our partner meetings as well. So they might have been involved in this process as long as some of the math faculty.
I think there's a question in the chat box by Luis Cart.
Yeah, I see. Right. So the question she's got, were any of these changes applied to the online sections? And what do we got for that one?
Yes, so even for online sections, we still do the same curriculum. We still do the same set of assignments. Students are still required to do the pre-class and also the pre-class activities through watching the videos and also realize it. And also there's also some Canvas assignments that they have to do, although it's not going to be in-class assignments because in the online sections. And also there are also still project assignments where students have to coordinate among their group members to get those projects done.
And I would say we've been very fortunate to have a member of the team who teaches our online sections who has been involved and with this and is involved with the process.
And then there was a comment, just to chime in, there was a comment in the chat about the number of online sections, and they seem to be increasing, and that we have several online programs. They also want us to use that, Stat 1222 as one of their courses. So yeah, there's a popular demand for that. And as a department, we are trying to manage that as our faculty mentioned about the classrooms. So if you come to Fredwell, if you take a look at that classroom, this is really nicely designed. And but it still holds about 85 or so, right? Realistically, I think it holds more, but if you want to be able to do the group projects, around 85 is a pretty good number. So and those classrooms really go pretty fast as well from our perspective, so this is a very popular course. Yeah.
We've got this other comment in the chat here, and I'd like to invite Ree to talk to us a little bit about expanding on these problems that are specialized. And by the way, the students fill out a little, they answer a questionnaire beginning of the semester to see what their interests are so they can get these personalized questions, but also Ree's done a little work with making case studies specialized. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so when the last semester, when there was a big kind of, suddenly everybody was talking about ChatGPT and how it was going to mess with our education, I thought, okay, so how are ways that I can use ChatGPT to help me? And I thought it would be neat because I am a math person. I do math and stats, and so I don't know a lot about what social scientists do, and I don't know a lot about, you know, what a criminal justice person is interested in. So I kind of leveraged ChatGPT to help me build some case studies, and allowed students to choose which. I gave them like a 5 different case studies that they could. One was ecological, one was health related, one was related to firefighter training. So kind of a different, more broad thing that they could choose the things that they were interested in and build a case study that they could work through. At the time, we were working on hypothesis testing. So they were kind of coming up with a reasonable hypothesis test and working through a hypothesis test. So I found it very freeing that I don't have to be the source of every idea, and I don't have to know everything about the majors that I'm dealing with. I can kind of use the tools that I have available to me to generate these case studies. And I got a very positive response from the students, even though some of them were in a group where their group chose a topic that did not align with their major. They went with a topic that was, you know, slightly different. They still felt like it really benefited them to see these case studies of how we use statistics in real life, not just in a single question, but in a kind of a worked through larger case study. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. And that's it. Once again, you saw how that has made it to our triad for the quality enhancement plan, that clearly defining what is it about this course which makes it relevant to your chosen pathway, be it a career pathway, an academic pathway, a personal pathway. And I think that sort of personalization is something that ChatGPT, AI, and this adaptive software can be very advantageous moving forward. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I would like to chime in a little bit based on what Rhea and Evan said, that, you know, one of the things we hear a lot, you know, when you talk with other colleagues on campus is that, you know, by the time their students are taking their courses, somehow they forgot the concept, like the math concepts they need or stat concepts they actually forgot. So the faculty is thinking like, okay, did we cover that, you know, in our material? But if you go back and look at it, we probably did. You know, as part of the course curriculum, everything went fine. But just making that connection is so powerful. I think that's what I think Rhea and Evan just explained to you. And I just want to reiterate that this is really what matters. Students really want to see if there's a connection to what they need later on, or what kind of skills they need, as Evan said, about, you know, about their academics as well as, you know, other industry or at the job marketplace, you know, whatever they need later, if they could see that connection, that really is like a light bulb coming onto their head and sort of helps them to really remember things. So yeah, this is a critical thing, because I think we hear a lot that, you know, okay, I'm covering this now, eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Well, you know, my students just had a pause, you know, they didn't really know what that is. But I think the fact that we have to make these connections early on, like what we have done for the stat pathways, I think it does make a huge difference. So the students can really go back, and when they're taking their courses, they come back and remember, oh yeah, I remember this is how it's done. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, we agree. And we think that this is a good model course, and that there are lots of students. If we can get the word out about this, people will be interested in having their students go through this. All right. Is there anything else anybody would like to add? Comments, questions? Anything? Of course, we're not going anywhere. We're all around, and this project is not going anywhere. We're going to continue with it. And simply by ending this today or finish watching this recording does not mean that we're not interested in questions or feedback, that we're going to continue moving and continue moving forward. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today, taking time out of your busy Halloween to be here. That's about it. Just wanted to wrap it up. If anybody else has any last things to say, otherwise I will say a big thank you from the QEP and the Math and Stats department for coming here and watching our showcase and taking it back and informing your colleagues about this as well. All right. Great.